was too late. Bradley Beal suffered the fate of John Wall's contract. It also has to be noted that Amari did force his way to New York, but all 4 of these cases are great overall case examples of what a giant contract can do to a team if that player's career ends up getting heavily affected by injuries. On the other side, though, we do have 4 times recently that teams have waited, and then it paid off to varying degrees. I mean, at the end of the day, not every single team can win the title, but after betting on Joel Embiid's injuries, the 76ers have been in the running year in and year out. And choosing Embiid has definitely been a better choice than choosing Ben. Steph Curry had a lot of ankle injuries early on, and Monte Ellis could have been the decision to go with. Back in 2010, Monte Ellis averaged 25.5 points per game at the age of 24. The Warriors luckily waited on their superstar. The Pelicans are in the nice predicament of what to do right now with Zion because of their way to New York, but all 4 of these cases are examples of what I'll call contract destruction. 4 contracts that were eventually going to ruin teams in Andrew Bynum, Grant Hill, Amari Stoudemire, and John Wall. 3 of these teams traded away the contracts before it was too late. Bradley Beal suffered the fate of John Wall's contract. It also has to be noted that Amari did force his way to New York, but all 4 of these cases are great overall case examples of what a giant contract can do to a team if that player's career ends up getting heavily affected by injuries. On the other side, though, we do have 4 times recently that teams have waited, and then it paid off to varying degrees. I mean, at the end of the day, not every single team can win the title, but after betting on Joel Embiid's injuries, the 76ers have been in the running year in and year out, and choosing Embiid has definitely been a better choice than choosing Ben. Steph Curry had a lot of ankle injuries early on, and Monte Ellis could have been the decision to go with. Back in 2010, Monte Ellis averaged 25.5 points per game at the age of 24. The Warriors luckily waited on their superstar. The Pelicans are in the nice predicament of what to do right now with Zion because of their incredibly quick and efficient rebuild due to their choice to wait through Anthony Davis's injuries at the time. And the Clippers had the Lob City era with Blake Griffin. They may have left something on the table, but overall, these 4 teams definitely do not regret their decisions. As for the destructive contracts, well, it needs to be kept in mind right now. Zion Williamson is the Pelicans' salary cap if they keep him. He's on the final season of his rookie deal. Next year, his 5-year max of at least $193 million kicks in. This is the moment to do something. If the Pelicans were to move Zion right now, they would get an incredible trade package back. It is known throughout the league that teams are willing to take the risk on Zion. But if the injuries continue to pile up, even one more year of this, we have seen that switch flip very quickly, and suddenly nobody wants to take that risk. It has certainly happened. Melo's years on the Knicks were underwhelming with playoff success, due in large part to the fact that Amari Stoudemire completely fell off. As a 27-year-old in 2010, the year before he joined the Knicks, Amari played in all 82 games and averaged 23.1 points and 8.9 rebounds a game, and was named to the All-NBA's second team. Despite this, due to injury concerns, the Knicks could not get Amari contract insured, something that is extremely rare, which meant it was no surprise, unfortunately, when after Amari played in 78 games in 2011 and was again second team All-NBA, he would get hurt playing 47 games in 2012, just 29 in 2013, and by the age of 31 was averaging just 11.9 points per game and was certainly not the wingman that Melo thought he was going to be. The Lakers moved Andrew Bynum to the Sixers after Bynum played 50 or more games between 2009 and 2012, was an All-Star in 2012, and was also a pivotal piece of the Lakers' 2009 and 2010 titles. For the Sixers, he never played a single game due to injury, and thus the process was born. Grant Hill here is a very underrated one. Remember, Grant Hill would attempt to team up with a star in Tracy McGrady, and T-Mac would miss out on a lot of his competitive years because Grant Hill, his supposed to be star teammate, unfortunately played in just 57 games in his first 4 full years with the Magic. This happened between the ages of 28 and 31 for Grant Hill, his prime, which meant the Orlando Magic were stuck with his contract. However, the Detroit Pistons got Ben Wallace back when they traded away Grant Hill right before these big injuries, and the Detroit Pistons ended up winning the title in 2004. But if they had kept that Grant Hill contract, that might never have been. Actually, it certainly never would have been. So if the Pelicans made the decision right now to move Zion, we'd start seeing packages that would be very interesting getting thrown at them. And so I cannot wait to see what the Pelicans do. My final verdict would be keep Zion. I would roll the dice if I was New Orleans. I would bet that what Zion can bring you, the heights.
So, Stans, you've been seeing probably. Actually, okay, I should assume that you've seen things. So
Yeah, in fact, everyone. Did you see the comments on the Good Mythical Morning where it's like, I think Stans pretends not to know these things? I saw that and I feel like I laughed for 10 minutes. Hey, what is this even about? Because last time it was North Korean internment games.
This is a much lighter topic. We're not going to be talking about autistic representation. We're not going to be talking about North Korea.
Yeah, we've been skirting the line recently, and I want to go into something that everyone is comfortable laughing at.
This is definitely something you're comfortable laughing at. Enjoy this TikTok, and then I'll tell you what we're talking about.
Okay.
I lose my man in every way. All the ways. Waking up, he gets to nut. Before he leaves out the door, he's leaving empty nuts. At work.
I like to think that her man just has like grocery bags just completely empty flopping around down there in the wind. I don't think it actually works like that, but 6 times? I guess I've never, I don't know if I've ever even gone that. Maybe when I was in like junior high.
He gets home, he's getting fed, he is getting another nut, and one before bed, or 2.
I like to imagine that the boyfriend's like, no, please, I don't want a nut again. And she's like, it's time. He opens, slams open the door.
It's got to be pure dust at that point. It's crazy. The funniest part of this is it's a fake podcast.
What?
Not only does she not have a podcast, and does she set this up to make it seem like she has a podcast, she's not even using the mic correctly. You're supposed to talk into the end of that particular mic, not the side. So that's not being picked up. And you can tell the audio quality is definitely not coming from that mic.
Right, so it's like a laptop or something. Wait, so is this Is this sketch comedy? Am I getting debated?
This is actually like Omega Brain. She has an OnlyFans, and this was used to promote her OnlyFans because she's talking about making sure a guy nuts all the time.
Right. So she's not talking to anyone. She's just recording. There's no other half of this interview.
There
So
is no
yeah, if you look
person.
up
She
full
borrowed
interview.
someone else's podcast setup just to film this one thing, not use the mics correctly, pretend she's talking to someone. Because when you do things like that, it makes it seem like you are way more knowledgeable, and that the thing you're talking about makes sense, so people are more likely to listen.
Right, or that you're famous enough to be a guest on a podcast, which maybe nowadays isn't like as much, but in the day is.
I also saw another insane clip. So this was a tweet I saw today that is another fake podcast, but this time run by Disney.
What? One of the weirdest Disney marketing things I've come across is this weird fake podcast where they've held these 3 women hostage to basically pretend to be normal fans who are not working for the company as they rigidly read extremely scripted ad copy to us.
You arrive at the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser, you will be greeted by cast members. And the cast members make the experience so easy. So they welcome
I mean, she's reading off a teleprompter, right? We can all see. Let me move my camera.
Yeah,
I've seen this
that's
face. That's teleprompter face. I'm gonna start at the beginning just so you can see it. And look at how, no matter where you click, she's looking at the exact same spot. That's where the words are.
and they give you your data band. This will allow you access to
Wait, where is she looking? Is this real?
Right past it. No, she's looking right past it. Over that corner, past the pipes. There's definitely gonna be a telephone.
Oh, but she looked like she was looking straight.
And in my opinion, this is when the adventure really begins. So when you arrive,
In my opinion, this is when the adventure really begins.
It's so true. And you can tell how genuine she is by the way that her cadence is and how she sounds.
So they post this on their channel. They have disclaimers saying they were compensated for it. Yeah, you're right. So they are using the podcast motif, the podcast look and feel to make people think it's more real. That's crazy.
Do you remember when like all the AI stuff was happening and people were
Do I remember? It's like every day. I feel like I can't go 2 steps without someone jerking off AI.
people were using Joe Rogan's AI voice to promote like random supplements
Yeah.
and make it seem like he was saying it?
Well, the funny thing is that's him actually promoting the supplements, but you're pretending it's AI.
Well, people have done a step up to that, and in this fake podcasting, this guy made it seem like he was on Joe Rogan's podcast talking about his brand. So he just
Oh.
put the red curtain behind him and pretended he was on the podcast.
16 hours straight of eating nothing but fats and meats and never eating carbs. Carbs actually regulate your metabolism.
Holy shit. Tell me that I didn't see what I just thought I saw. Because I really hope that I didn't see someone pretending to be
I feel like this guy should have practiced the lines. The pacing is a little off on the stage.
So yeah, no one likes this guy, it seems, this V-Shred guy, not the person we're listening to.
Okay, so they all know it. They're saying like, oh, we hated V-Shred, but now we saw this and we really hate V-Shred. That's what's going
Yeah,
on.
he's the guy, he looks ripped and he holds a pizza and a salad. A picture of one hand salad and the other, and he goes like, which one do you think I've been eating? And he goes, that's right, the pizza.
I've
And
never seen that in my entire life, and it sounds so funny.
Lots of people have been doing fake podcasts, using it for their own gain or just using it to meme around, and we're gonna look at some of the funny memes that people have used off the back of this.
Okay, let's do it. So is this is a fake podcast? Or this
Yeah,
is
this
a
is a
skit?
fake podcast, but like as a skit.
Okay, I love that. They're making fun of it. They're subverting.
For a year, do you know how much money you have? Roughly $30,000. You're 25, and you and your friends don't meet up to day trade. How are you expecting to be a millionaire in your 20s? If you go to a restaurant and you're like, oh, when am I gonna eat for dinner? Like that's the wrong mindset. You should be thinking, how can I buy this restaurant?
I'll see something like this, and I'm like, oh, that's so funny. They're making fun of it. And then I'll see it on LSF, and it's like, I can't believe these people actually think this thing. And it ends up being true. It's like the
Yeah,
one where there's
it's
like
fun.
19 guys at a table, like some weird board meeting, and then they'll have 2 like OnlyFans models, and they'll be like, women are pieces of shit, huh? And they'll be like filing their fingers, going like, yeah, I think so. And then they'll go, got him. It's so fucking weird. I don't get it.
I'm at the point where someone came up to me and said, if you slap your mom, I'll give you $15 million. Yeah, I'd slap my mom, but I would not accept the $15 million because to be honest, that job experience is invaluable on the resume. They say, oh,
It's I mean, that's everyone's seen the like, hey, $1 million or dinner with Jay-Z or whatever it is, or that stupid ass Donald Trump, Elon Musk one. And it's like, what the fuck are you guys smoking? No, it's not valuable at all. Why do we have this weird cult of personality around these people? I'll take $1 million over anything from Mr. Beast or Ludwig.
buy little green houses, maybe a red hotel. And instead of being innovative and building their passive income, people are worried about going to jail. Really easy to not go to jail. Just roll
It's really easy not to
In my opinion, if you are like an iron or
You're
you're
gonna
a
get out of
star,
jail
like,
pretty quick.
Is it gonna get further and further into Monopoly? Because this is fucking beautiful sketch comedy.
It's amazing.
Money movement mindset.
Yeah, I always thought the last bit was gonna be like, you just pass go. Like it's simple.
Yeah,
Why
just
be
pass go,
assuming?
Megalol, $200,
Yeah.
Megalol. Yeah. What makes me feel bad is that there's, I know that this is a caricature, but there's people that are 90% of this, and that's what freaks me out, man.
This guy posted a while ago. This guy's so funny. He basically does every member of the podcast. He does like 70 of these videos. It's very good.
Can I blow your mind real quick? Okay. Who named the Earth the Earth? Let that sink in. Chris is walking up because we've been talking about this all week. Who named the Earth the Earth? I mean, really think about it. So every nation, regardless of language, for all of human history, has called the planet the same thing. How could they independently...
This actually makes me feel bad about not only listening to podcasts in general, but streaming on Twitch. Like the fact that I say things and someone out there either thinks or knows that I am this. You know what I mean? I've said some goofy shit, but
I
it's
don't
like,
understand. You're not letting it sink in. I don't know
no, it's sunk too deep. It's sunk so deep right now is what I'm saying.
If you're in North Africa, you call it the Earth. If you're in South America, you call it the Earth. Even before cell phones were invented, even before boats were invented.
Before cell phones,
you
North
had two
America and
completely
South.
different places.
What was it?
Separated by
North
the
Africa,
South
South
Pole.
America.
This is the part that's going to blow your mind.
Oh, no.
What do North Africa and South America have in common? Pyramids.
The pyramids. It all makes sense now. Holy shit, dude! It's the pyramids. Aliens. Stan.
Yeah,
I don't know if you
no,
understand.
I get
Aliens.
it. No, it all makes sense. Man, the kind of
Aliens
recommended
make
TikToks we
Earth.
get after watching these is
Oh,
a look.
Jesus.
It's a
Yes.
look.
This guy did it as though it's like a level up of a podcast. It's like he's on stage doing a talk, but
Oh, he's like doing his head talk, but it's not real. Yeah.
So she said to me, sir, you owe
Oh
us...
my god, he even did the audio, so it sounds like it's like echoing to an
It's great,
auditorium.
yeah, it's
Oh, high effort fakery.
So she said to me, sir, you owe us $500. And I said, I don't pay full price for anything. She said, so this is a hospital. We don't negotiate our prices. So I said, yeah, this is a hospital, a place where people come to get fixed. Remind me, what exactly did you fix?
Oh shit, he's got
Your
that.
wife. You owe us for what? Spit it out, Toots. She said, the abortion, you owe us for the abortion. So let me get this straight. You want me to pay you for killing my only son.
Based.
Oh, that's very funny. Yeah, you killed my only son is very funny.
Oh, this one's really, really good.
So not only is this a fake podcast, they're also doing Subway Surfers to make it look like someone else has taken what is a good moment from a podcast and re-uploaded it with Subway Surfers to keep your attention.
Jen Ortega, I don't like her.
I wonder why.
She was rude to the Wednesday writing staff.
Don't you think that a woman of color should be ruder to the writing staff?
Wait, I'm sorry, stop. The Subway Surfer got hit.
Oh no.
Stanley, give me the rest of the part on Jen Ortega.
Oh no.
Way too tough on her.
We got Family Guy at the end. That's okay. Make it okay.
Very nice, very nice.
We're going back to the OG dog, the one and only Mark.
Okay.
So the word dinosaur comes from... Chris is leaving because we've been...
Like it's the same joke. Chris leaving, yeah.
So the word dinosaur comes from two Greek words, okay? Deinos, which means terrible, and sauros, which means lizard, okay? Now, dinosaurs lived hundreds of millions of years ago, apparently. And the Greek language is only 5,000 years old. Let that sink in. So either there were Greek people around 100 million years ago, or there were dinosaurs 5,000 years ago. And you can look this up. If you want to go down this rabbit hole with me, you start to ask questions like, well, how did they build pyramids?
No.
How did they move giant rocks through the desert? Well, what could pull a giant rock through the desert?
Have I told you the story that I almost got, what do they call it, like 5,000-year-old earthered? When I was a kid, I used to go to church with my mom every other Sunday. My parents were divorced. And I was also a member of the youth group. And I think I must have been like 9 years old maybe at this point. And we went to another church for some kind of like presentation or something. And it was 2 hours straight of exactly what you just watched. You fucking tribes in the Amazon talk to dinosaurs. Here's a recording and it would play like, and it'd be like, that was a fucking dinosaur on recording. How could we get a dinosaur on recording if they weren't around as recently as 100 years ago? Here's a fucking, yeah, it was a weird fucking, yeah.
How is that even slightly religious?
Oh, because people believe that God created the earth 2,000 years ago or whatever, you know? And I remember as a 9-year-old looking around being like, these people are fucking idiots.
Well, I've just seen a TikTok stand. I don't know if you've seen it. It was just about how dinosaurs were named. It's like a Greek name, and the Greeks
yeah,
are old.
I know.
So
Soros.
I'm pretty sure they did something with the pyramids. You should watch the TikTok.
Yeah, I was listening to my favorite podcast recently, and honestly, check it out. It's gonna blow your mind. It's gonna blow your mind. It would suck to like blow up on TikTok, but you're getting typecast into having to do every dude with a podcast only. You know what I mean? Like, I'd like to make art. I'd like to dance. And it's like, no, do your thing, podcast boy.
Who buried the dinosaurs?
Oh no.
Because we only find dinosaur skeletons buried in the ground. But when you see the remains of an elephant, the bones are just sitting there on top of the earth, not buried underneath it. Okay, so let that sink in. As far as we know, and you can look at this, human beings are the only species that have burial rituals for their deceased. So who buried the dinosaurs?
Who buried dinosaurs?
This is leaving because I've been going on about this all morning.
Chris.
There's really only two options. One, dinosaurs are far more intelligent than we previously thought and were capable of empathy and requires closure. Or,
so what is it?
And this is the theory that's out there right now, there was a, let's just call it, race of beings who were larger than dinosaurs that felt the need to give them a proper burial.
Wow.
That's the only two options, right? No, it makes sense, actually, now that I've watched this.
And on that note...
Wow, fake podcasts are everywhere. They're taking over, chat. You can't tell what's real and what's not real. It could even be on Joe Rogan and it would be a fake thing. It could even give you great advice about money, or women, or dinosaurs. Who knows? And here's the crazy thing. You laugh at a couple of these and all of a sudden you're watching Matt Walsh talk about what is and isn't a woman. And it's really fucking weird. Thanks for watching.
This man has been out for 11 weeks, and when he comes back, they'll have 3 games. Skibby's gonna come back and do what? To me.
I do have a bit of an announcement to make. This is something look, I'm pretty excited about this. I'll be right back. Makes me look so angry. Chat, I have officially signed a Croc deal. This is my Michael Jordan Nike Air Jordans moment. I have officially become a partnered Croc creator. I am paid to wear Crocs now. After years of pushing a good Croc brand to everybody. Y'all remember Streamer Awards, Ludwig accepting my award for Streamer of the Year, rocking nothing but the beautiful Crocs. Now I'm paid. Ooh, what a W! What a W! All right, who could forget Murder Mystery Ludwig Crocs? We have some iconic Crocs. We even have a Croc emote in chat. And as a part of this Croc deal, I don't know how the heck this happened, but I asked for a giant life-size head Croc and they gave me one. This might now be the coolest thing that I own. This is crazy.
Look at this. This is ridiculous. Why is it green? Because that's what my emote is. Look, chat, spam the emote. Spam the emote. Look, this is the emote. We've had this emote for like 4 years. And now, all of a sudden, the big Croc came around and we are paid to have it, which is a huge W. Now, you might be wondering, Ludwig, what does it mean to be sponsored by Croc? What does this even mean? Good question. Fair question. Simply put, baby steps. All right? I don't get my own Croc yet. Okay? All right? That's my dream. I've spoken into the universe. I've not been shy about it with the people at Crocs. But for now, I do not have my own Croc that I'm about to drop. I instead have my own pack of Jibbitz. If y'all don't know, Jibbitz are Crocs, like the little things that you put inside of them. And I got my own pack of Jibbitz right here that are just Jibbitz that I like. So I'll show you it on the website. Basically, if you go on the Crocs website, there's literally something called Ludwig's Classic Clog Pack. And it's all my Jibbitz. So you got the game controller, you got the beer, you got a little computer pointer, you have an I Love Camping one, which I just thought was funny. And then you have the globe, like GeoGuessr style. So you got a little pack of Ludwig Jibbitz, all right, a little slice of Ludwig that you can cop. Ooh, there it is. Whoa, what the heck? Wait, what the heck? Wait, what? Whoa, what the heck? Oh, sorry, one more time. Sorry, I can't. This is sponsor stream, Ludwig. Sorry, Jesus. If y'all want to support and get either a Jibbitz, the whole pack of Jibbitz, maybe get yourself a new Croc, get yourself a Croc, and you'd be getting yourself one, a godlike shoe, and two, helping me look good for Big Croc.
We just got a bunch of big news and revelations around Starfield. Over the past couple of weeks, many fans have been diving deep into the direct footage, actually including me. Get subscribed if you're looking for that video. But as a result of this, some interesting observations have started to pop up, like certain old deep into the direct footage, actually including me. Get subscribed if you're looking for that video. But as a result of this, some interesting observations have started to pop up, like certain old leaks for Starfield may have actually been true, with some aspects of those leaks getting confirmed by the most recent footage. And I want to break down what's happening here, because this story is actually far more complicated than most people realize, but also there's been a wave of other Bethesda details to drop around the recent FTC court case, including some updates on the Elder Scrolls 6, Starfield, and more. Although unfortunately, some of these updates aren't actually good news, at least not for most of us. But first, let's make your life simpler with today's video sponsor, Factor. Factor's been an absolute game changer for me. You get a bunch of meals that are never frozen and literally ready to eat in 2 minutes or less. And yes, summer's here, so if you're trying to get that summer bod going, there are a ton of meal choice preference like Calorie Smart, Vegan, or even Keto. But the best part of Factor for for me is I never even have to leave my apartment. One day I get a knock on the door with a big box full of food, and with over 34 meal options each week, I have literally never gotten bored of the options. And if one day you're feeling really lazy, you just can't get away from that prolonged gaming session, Vector also has these Keller shakes and smoothies. These things taste incredible, and there are a ton of choices of what to eat and drink. But really, the best part is opening your fridge to a ton of meal options for that day. And since you watch this video, you can actually get a pretty good deal with Vector right now. Use my link or go to go.factor75.com and use code POGJUICEJUN50 for 50% off your first box. And once you click, my description will live update to count up the purchases. The first thing we need to look at are the supposedly real leaks around Starfield. The major post in question that many of you have been sharing with me is this one, describing an undisputedly real leak for Starfield that was posted all the way back in September of 2021. Right off the bat, we have to get ourselves into the right frame of mind here. In 2021, we didn't know all that much about Starfield. We had just gotten the announcement teaser, these 3 behind-the-scenes location videos, a bunch of the images leaked, but outside of that, we were really just operating off of some of the Todd Howard interviews, and even those were still pretty high level. And looking back at this leak, it correctly predicted a lot of things. You see things like ship flight and even ship customization mentioned. Sidonia is listed as one of the major locations and unmarked, something we definitely didn't know at the time, as well as certain factions are named, the Crimson Fleet Pirates, but also Black Fleet. Black Fleet wasn't even really given much spotlight in the direct, but by looking at some of the behind-the-scenes shots, you can see Black Fleet is seemingly going to be a part of Starfield. There's mention of a much expanded settlement system, which we are definitely getting, and then even just sharing an actual in-game image of Starfield. Even back in late 2021 when this was posted, this was definitely a 4chan post with an above average amount of credibility. And as you dig into it now looking back, it really does look legit. There were a lot of things that this post just seemed to get correct. Except I'm actually here to tell you that no, this isn't an undisputedly real leak, this is actually a fake leak. So you might be sitting here going like, wait, how, why? Almost everything about this leak is pretty accurate. Only a couple of details were wrong, like us apparently being able to choose our starting location in Starfield, as well as things like layered armor returning with this game. But no, I know this is a fake leak because I also know who made this fake leak. You see, a lot of the information was already known if you were a Starfield superfan back in September of 2021. As a simple example, this Sidonia being a big confirmation that the leak must be true is not really that big of a guess. Sidonia was in the original 2021 teaser trailer. You can see it written on this board. So extrapolating that Sidonia would end up being one of the bigger cities isn't that crazy of a prediction. And it's a similar story for a lot of the other details. There are either safe bets or things that have already been confirmed or hinted at one way or another. Black Fleet is another aspect that a lot of people are saying, hey, how could they possibly know that? Black Fleet was actually the name of one of the leaked images, this leaked image. When this image was saved, the title of it was literally Black Fleet. The Crimson Fleet Pirates were known about due to this design document that you could see on Emil's screen in this behind-the-scenes video, and even the expanded settlement system was mentioned in one of those one-off random interviews. The real big prediction that was made during this leak was actually the space flight and ship customization. That was not confirmed, but a lot of people in the community were speculating this would be a feature, especially when you consider that the whole point of the teaser trailer is that somebody is getting into the cockpit and taking off in a spaceship. That was definitely a big clue that that's something we ourselves would be able to do. So yeah, that is a fake leak created by a diehard fan, but Starfield has had real leaks in the past. Heavy008 is a former Bethesda Game Studios developer. They posted a Reset Era confirming things like manual flight and how Starfield is getting a ridiculous amount of content. All of that is obviously confirmed to be true now, and the hilarious part about that leak is it basically seems like that poster didn't realize how their NDA worked. They didn't even realize they were leaking information and actually argued with people who claimed they were leaking information. We of course got all those leaked images of Starfield. These two had a pretty funny origin as they were literally just found on Google Images. Basically one dev had a private portfolio of images of work they've done on Starfield, except that private portfolio accidentally got cached by Google Images, so once you found one image you could gain complete access to the portfolio. But also another 4chan leak that at least most likely was true. This 4chan post dates all the way back to December of 2018, just a month after the release of Fallout 76, and it got a ton right. And I feel like the context of this leak makes it even more impressive. We're talking about a time where Fallout 76 just dropped and basically everybody was disappointed or somewhat disgruntled with Bethesda. So when you have somebody coming out and saying that work on Starfield is beginning and they're working on things like space travel, and even how space travel is one of the first things they started working on with that game, which was later confirmed officially by Todd Howard, or even how Starfield's going to feature Morrowind-like RPG systems, and really the return of deeper RPG elements, as well as a spaceship that will grow in both tech and crew, as well as some other details, but really those were the big ones, and all of that ended up coming true. That's a 5-year-old post that definitely got a surprising amount right at a time when not many people had much confidence in what Bethesda was doing. And it's interesting as even some of the things that were incorrect in that original 2018 leak, like saying the game was targeting a 2020 or a 2021 release date, actually turned out to be true. You remember how we got a bunch of leaks saying that Starfield was coming out around 2020 or 2021? Well, it seems like those were actually correct. As Phil Spencer recently confirmed that before Microsoft bought Bethesda, they were targeting a much earlier release date for Starfield.
Truth be told, when the acquisition closed, this game had a significantly earlier ship date than where we're actually launching it, even significantly later than the date that we once had for the game.
So with this additional context, it's like all of a sudden all of those 2021 rumors make a lot more sense. And one of the other details that this 2018 leak seemed to get wrong was that Starfield would allow you to choose your starting location, just like alternate start. That is something that may sound familiar because we just talked about how it was also in the fake 2021 leak. So can you guess where the 2021 leak got the idea for alternate start in Starfield from? Yeah, it was from the original and likely real 2018 leak. And this ties all together because the entire purpose of this new fake 2021 leak that people are claiming is real is of course partially just messing with the community, but also an attempt at posting a fake leak to coax the real leaker out of the woodwork to post more real Starfield details. Because there were subsequent posts in both 2019 and June of 2021 that also had some potential of being real on 4chan, but they're not as obviously real or fake. So yeah, Starfield has definitely had some real leaks and definitely had some fake leaks, although which one is which is not always clear. And it all doesn't stop there. As of late, we're getting a bunch of additional leaked information around Bethesda and Microsoft thanks to the government. Microsoft is trying to buy Activision Blizzard, but in the United States, the FTC has sued to attempt to block this deal. This leading to a court case, and from this court case, we are getting a bunch of revealing emails from years ago that are being put into discovery, and even just testimony from top Xbox and Bethesda members that has been revealing a ton of information about their games, both past and future. And some of this newly revealed information is actually a pretty big bummer. During this, we heard from Bethesda's head of publishing, that with Pete Hines, on the topic of Starfield, they do say, we would not be putting this game out in 9 weeks if we were supporting an entire additional platform, in my opinion, suggesting that Starfield development would take even longer if it was also coming to PlayStation. We got a really interesting insight into Bethesda's own frustrations towards Microsoft as well, though. In an email from Pete Hines, he's questioning why Bethesda were told to make their titles Xbox and PC exclusive, while Phil Spencer was publicly stating that Call of Duty would remain on PlayStation even if Microsoft buys Activision Blizzard. But the last few lines of this email from Pete Hines being the big part. Did anyone at Xbox think about giving us a heads up on this? Todd's going to DICE in a couple of weeks. You don't think a journal might find him and press him and why the below is okay for Todd, or any Activision Blizzard games, but not the Elder Scrolls 6 or Starfield, or at any/every future interview he does? This is a really interesting insight into the internal back and forth that we typically don't get any view of. Definitely seems like there's some frustration at Bethesda about the exclusivity requirement that was seemingly imposed on them for Starfield. It's not like they chose to make the game a Xbox and PlayStation exclusive, they were told to do so. And honestly, I get this perspective. You have Bethesda in numerous interviews basically saying how the partnership with Xbox is great. Starfield development will be streamlined due to only being on Xbox and not PlayStation. But then conversely, with this other potential buyout that's not happening, they're going to have to battle against why it's okay for that game to be on both platforms but not your game. But what has definitely been one of the most interesting insights for me is that a major reason Microsoft wanted to buy ZeniMax and Bethesda in the first place is that Sony was attempting to make Starfield a PlayStation exclusive. With Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, saying, when we heard that Starfield was potentially also going to end up skipping Xbox, we can't be in a position as a third-place console where we fall further behind on content ownership, so we've had to secure content to remain viable in the business. And they're basically saying that PlayStation and Nintendo are already ahead of us in console sales. All we really have going for us are our games, and if games are going to start skipping our platforms, we have to do something about that. The little photo I used was from The Verge. They definitely had some of the best reporting on this FTC case, and I'll have links to all their articles and tweets down below. And Starfield going to PlayStation or being a PlayStation exclusive was something else that was leaked in the past. And it's really not all that shocking. Both Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo were PlayStation exclusives. Sony bought that exclusivity. With that context, the same happening to Starfield doesn't really seem all that crazy anymore. And Phil Spencer continues on to say, every time we ship a game on PlayStation, Sony captures 30% of the revenue that we do on their platform. And then they use that money along with other revenue that they have to do things to try and reduce Xbox's survival on the market. Which honestly, the framing of that one is definitely a little bit odd. Everyone is taking a 30% cut of Microsoft titles as long as it's being sold on a different platform. Microtransactions in Fallout Shelter? Yeah. Apple and the App Store is getting their 30%. You just bought Starfield on Steam? Yeah. Valve is getting their 30% also. And to make that statement from Phil Spencer even a bit funnier, we also hear how Microsoft themselves wanted to, and this is a quote, spend Sony out of the business, which they would basically do by putting big money behind acquisitions. If you compare Microsoft and Sony, Microsoft is a significantly larger company, like numerous times the size of Sony. So while PlayStation is larger than Xbox, at least with consoles sold, Microsoft overall has far more resources at their disposal, and they basically wanted to use them to try and push Sony out of the market, according to this email. Now, this was an email from 2019, with it now surfacing. Microsoft claims that it refers to industry trends we never pursued, and it is unrelated to the acquisition, not referring to the Activision Blizzard acquisition. But honestly, I just found that response laughable. A few years ago, they said they want to spend Sony out of the business. Now they're bringing out their checkbook, spending hundreds of billions of dollars acquiring all of these companies, but that isn't their plan anymore. And I think a simple line to put this into perspective is Microsoft is trying to buy Activision Blizzard right now for $70 billion. The entirety of Sony, the company overall, currently has a market cap, basically its worth is around $111 billion. This one purchase is worth 60% of Sony's overall value, and Microsoft has made several purchases over the past few years. And at the end of the day, both Sony and Microsoft probably want their biggest competitor to fail. This is business. They're not your friends, and they are definitely profit-driven. Although, even beyond some of these Starfield-related comments, we also heard about some of the other games that are currently in development, such as with The Elder Scrolls 6. When asked about whether it would also be a PC and Xbox exclusive, it was described how it's so far out, it's hard to understand what the platforms will even be. We're talking about a game that's 5+ years away. Like from Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox overall, and considering he was, under oath, I think that basically confirms that, yeah, The Elder Scrolls 6 is likely looking at a end-of-the-decade release date. 2028 to 2030 seems like a real plausible window for when we can actually get hands-on with this game. So on one hand, you definitely want Bethesda to continue creating these ridiculously high-quality worlds, but on the other hand, I did have what was clearly a false hope that after Starfield things would start to ramp up again at Bethesda, we could perhaps see the return of 3 to 4 year game release windows, especially with so much of the engine heavy lifting happening with Starfield and then the company growing in size drastically over the past few years. But no, unfortunately, that doesn't seem the case. It seems like Bethesda has now graduated to being a once-a-console generation release. If anything, this could actually set up The Elder Scrolls 6 as a nice launch title for whatever the next-gen Xbox console is. And on a timeline like this, it definitely seems realistic where Fallout 5 could be a mid-2030s game or later. As of right now, we don't even know if Fallout 5 is going to be next after The Elder Scrolls 6, so perhaps it doesn't come until 2040 at this rate. Another that sounds outlandish, it's not. If there's 5-year gaps between games, we could totally see The Elder Scrolls 6 in 2028, Starfield 2 in 2033, and Fallout 5 in 2038. We also got some high-level details on the upcoming Indiana Jones game. This coming from Machine Games, developers behind Wolfenstein, but also being executive produced by Todd Howard. We learned it's going to be a PC and Xbox exclusive as well. This happened after Microsoft bought Bethesda, so seemingly it was planned to be brought to all systems previously, but then after the buyout, things changed. During this testimony, Pete Hine claimed that this exclusivity was to reduce risk and try to get a degree of certainty with the game. As well as we have an email around the announcement of the Indiana Jones game, this codename Project Relic. This email was sent just before the announcement, and it's pretty interesting. They say, we are planning to announce Project Relic next Tuesday. As a reminder, Project Relic is an original Indiana Jones game, not tied to the film, developed by Machine Games and executive produced by Todd Howard, who's been trying to get this game made for over a decade. If you don't know, Todd might be the biggest Indiana Jones fan on the planet. I'm not exaggerating even a little. Anyone who has seen the pitch has immediately said, oh my god, I have to play that game right now. It's going to be amazing, and we think reaction to the announcement is going to be terrific. I don't know about you, but that email actually gets me incredibly hyped for the game. I feel like we need to see the official Machine Games Twitter account just tweet out this email as a hype piece. Let's get a bit more insight into the Microsoft buyout plans overall. They have a list of over 100 developers they considered for acquisition, including insight into the Microsoft buyout plans overall. They have a list of over 100 developers they considered for acquisition, including major players like From Software and even CD Projekt Red. This list of developers is going to be pretty interesting to keep an eye on. Immediately said, oh my god, I have to play that game right now. Relic next Tuesday. As a reminder, Project Relic is an original Indiana Jones game, not tied to the films, developed by Machine Games and executive produced by Todd Howard, who's been trying to get this game made for over a decade. If you don't know, Todd might be the biggest Indiana Jones fan on the planet. I'm not exaggerating even a little. Anyone who has seen the pitch has immediately said, oh my god, I have to play that game right now. It's going to be amazing, and we think reaction to the announcement is going to be terrific. I don't know about you, but that email actually gets me incredibly hyped for the game. I feel like we need to see the official Machine Games Twitter account just tweet out this email as a hype piece. Let's get a bit more insight into the Microsoft buyout plans overall. They have a list of over 100 developers they considered for acquisition, including major players like From Software and even CD Projekt Red. This list of developers is going to be pretty interesting to keep an eye on. Of course, Microsoft trying to buy Activision right now, but several major government bodies have attempted to block the deal. If it does get blocked, you have to imagine they're going to want to try again with a different major developer. But at the same time, Microsoft has also said they have further acquisition plans even beyond Activision. Even if the Activision deal goes through, they're still going to want to buy other developers. And what to me has been one of the most hilarious byproducts of all this is an old leak getting confirmed. Back in 2020, Jeff Grubb reported that Microsoft was in talks to acquire Bungie. We now have this explicitly confirmed during the court case. Microsoft was in talks to acquire Bungie. Except at the time, back in 2020, when that rumor surfaced, the CEO of Bungie said it was a fake rumor. That of course being a hit to Jeff Grubb's credibility at the time, but now 3 years later, Jeff Grubb gets his vengeance as no, the CEO of Bungie was just lying. But that wasn't all the news, as we also learned that AMD will be an exclusive partner of Starfield. Bethesda and AMD are partnering to unlock the full potential of the game, which definitely really means something and isn't just PR speak. I guess in some more real terms, Todd Howard confirms AMD engineers are working in the code base to implement FSR2 for both PC and consoles for Starfield, which at face value, this actually does sound pretty cool. FSR will help you get more FPS out of Starfield. It's AMD's take on an upscaler, like NVIDIA DLSS. Obviously, Starfield's going to be locked at 30 FPS on consoles, but perhaps PC will actually see better FSR performance as a result of this. The one major drawback being that in many of these AMD exclusive partnerships, and basically all of them, these games don't typically get official DLSS support. This technically isn't officially confirmed as of right now, but there certainly has been a pattern here, and that'd be a real bummer. DLSS is NVIDIA's take on upscaling technology, and just generally performs better than FSR. DLSS is hardware-based and only for NVIDIA GPUs, while FSR is software-based and will work on both NVIDIA and AMD GPUs. But just in general, having used both, and a lot of other people have experiences as well, DLSS is viewed right now as being superior to FSR, both in image quality and also the performance gains you get, especially when you look at DLSS 3. So hopefully at some point we get a correction on this, and DLSS actually is coming to Starfield, because for a lot of people, if you play Starfield on launch, you'll probably now get slightly lower FPS due to having to rely on FSR, especially if you have an NVIDIA GPU. But there still is hope. Modders can add DLSS to the game, and even just recently, PureDark has been working on getting DLSS 3.0 working on Fallout 4 and Skyrim, which is just absolutely insane in its own right. And if you want to see my video on that, get subscribed, because it definitely is coming. Although of course, when it comes to stuff like this, you don't want to have to rely on modders to fix the problem. As many of you do know, Nanzer is composing the soundtrack for Starfield, and they recently performed one of the songs at the Game Awards 10-year concert. So during the Starfield segment, we actually got some never-before-seen visuals of Starfield. It's pretty basic and minor stuff, largely just static shots of a ship or something. The Starfield, so many of you do know, Nanzer is composing on getting DLSS 3.0 working on Fallout 4 and Skyrim, which is just absolutely insane in its own right. And if you want to see my video on that, get subscribed, because it definitely is coming. Although of course, when it comes to stuff like this, you don't want to have to rely on modders to fix the problem. As many of you do know, Nanzer is composing the soundtrack for Starfield, and they recently performed one of the songs at the Game Awards 10-year concert. So during the Starfield segment, we actually got some never-before-seen visuals of Starfield. It's pretty basic and minor stuff, largely just static shots of a ship or something from the game, but hey, it's something and it's something new. One of the big questions in the community is Starfield coming on a disc? The question ended up leading to a short-lived controversy over the past few days. There's been this trend of games no longer shipping with a physical disc. Even if you buy a physical copy, it'll just come with a code that you will use for a digital version. So when asked just recently, Bethesda support said Starfield would not come with a disc, regardless of which version of the game you purchased, it would be a code. As you can imagine, there were some pretty strong opinions about this in the community, but very quickly it was clear that this tweet was actually posted in error. So the tweets from support were very quickly deleted, and many pointed to other tweets from official accounts that contradicted this. But thankfully, just yesterday we got a more proper answer on the official pre-order page saying game disc included with physical purchase of the Xbox Standard Edition, game code included with physical purchases on PC Standard Edition. So if you're playing on console and buy the standard version, you should get a disc, but it seems like all other versions will not come with a disc, including PC, but also it seems like all Constellation versions will not come with a disc. At least that's my interpretation. If you're wondering why people even care about this, it really seems to be a couple of major categories. On one hand, there's a lot of people with slow internet that would like to at least install some of the game off of the disc and get into game a bit quicker, as well as some other users who are a bit frustrated. Like, at the end of the day, yes, you are buying a container meant to hold a disc. I wish it actually came with a damn disc. And discs make it a lot easier to transfer ownership of a game you purchased. But to end things off on a nice feel-good story, another Fallout London modder was just hired by Bethesda officially. That was Patchwork Professor, who was just hired as an associate level designer. Seeing modders get hired is the ultimate feel-good story for me, and over the past couple of years, we've seen not only Bethesda Game Studios, but also CDPR actually hiring quite a few modders to work on the games officially. With that said, if you want to get even more up-to-date with Starfield, get subscribed. I have a big deep dive on the Developer Direct coming, but even beyond that, check out this video, where we get some more information about Starfield from Todd Howard.
I've made a handful of videos expressing my...
We just got a bunch of big news and revelations around Starfield.
I'm arguably best basketball player in the world, you know.
These are moments that define careers, and they get slapped.
Boston Celtics look like a team that's on the verge of being swept.
As we just saw Jason Tatum humbly believe, in the most humble sense, that he was the best player on earth, and then quickly got brought back to reality by Jimmy Butler within a week's worth of time. Unfortunately, many of us saw this coming. Jason Tatum has continued to reach the brink of absolute peak excellence when it comes to NBA history, but as he has reached that top end, last season in the NBA Finals, he was outbattled by Andrew Wiggins, and this season, the Boston Celtics are ending the year in an embarrassing fashion. But on the other end, Jason Tatum has been a young superstar, which is really why this has been so confusing. Not only is he a fully playoff experienced vet at this point, superstar, which is really why this has been so confusing. Not only is he a fully playoff experienced, a young superstar, which is really why this has been so confusing. Not only is he a fully playoff experienced vet at this point, but in his last 3 seasons, in the regular season, Tatum has averaged 27.9 points per game, 8.1 rebounds, and 4.4 assists. The list of players to average over 27 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists per game in that age range includes just 4 names, neither of which are Michael Jordan or LeBron James. Instead, we have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Oscar Robertson, and Luka Doncic. With that on paper, Jason Tatum is among historic company, and then this very season, in the second round of this year's playoffs, it seemed like Jason Tatum was finally turning the corner with a 50-point closeout performance in a Game 7 against the league's MVP. It felt like yet again, maybe Jason Tatum was finally putting it all together. He was finally taking the leap and becoming a playoff closer and dependable go-to star. Instead, though, we have had a disaster. So at this point, the question needs to be asked. What if Jason Tatum never gets the job done? It's not like we haven't seen that before. And sadly, we have actually seen players get so in their heads from repeated playoff failures to the point where they go from regular season MVP superstars to playoff liabilities when their teams need them the most. So what's up, Mike here? And so far in his NBA career, Jason Tatum in the regular season has proven to be an upcoming Hall of Famer. There really is no denying that, and there really is no denying Jason Tatum's talent. On paper, Jason Tatum is supposed to be the kind of superstar you can build a championship contender around. But as we just saw, for whatever reason, with Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics, that has not exactly been the case. In Jason Tatum's early playoff career, we have found repeated close chance after close chance, but ultimately, we have also found failure. Sometimes in NBA history, failure can be a great thing. And make no mistake about it, Jason Tatum is still young. He's only 25. In players such as a young Kobe Bryant, someone who Jason Tatum has certainly modeled his game after, playoff losses push Kobe to new heights. They push Kobe to prove doubters wrong. As in Kobe's case, as a young player, he airballed several key shots. Roll the clip.
5 seconds left. 4. Bryant drives. Pull up. Shot on the way. No good. Cross court left. Open Kobe. Bryant for 3. Another airball. Bryant for 3. It's short again. 7 seconds. Here's a 3-pointer. Airball again. It's over. It's over.
As you saw, a young Kobe missed several clutch shots down the stretch, and then both he and Shaq responded with a 3-peat. And then after, in the 2008 NBA Finals, Kobe did not win without Shaq. He still came back, adjusted his game, adjusted his flaws. The key point here, really. And Kobe won 2 more championships without Shaq. On the flip side, though, it has been shown to us that repeated failures in big moments can definitely cause a player to get in his own head and can cause a player's legacy to be impacted. The worst thing for a player to leave his career with is unfinished business. And looking at a list of the biggest star players turned playoff disappointments in league history, we have a lot of unfinished business, and we have a lot of players who fail to address their biggest flaws. Looking at a player like Chris Webber, he was someone who really struggled towards the end of games. I barely want to bring it up because of how much it's impacted Chris Webber's life, but Chris Webber probably had the biggest choke moment in basketball history when he was playing with the Fab Five in the 1993 title game against the North Carolina Tar Heels. As you can see in this clip,
Michigan have to bring it.
Oh, he walked in. The referee missed it.
Weber brings it into the front court. They have no timeouts remaining.
He causes too many timeouts. That's a technical foul.
Chris Webber calls a timeout that does not exist, and because of this, a technical foul was called. Free throws were given to North Carolina. The ball was given to North Carolina. The title was given to North Carolina, and Chris Webber was never the same in the fourth. If you didn't know, Chris Webber was once seen as a generational prospect. However, these end-of-game woes seriously haunted him, and twice as an all-star for the Sacramento Kings, Webber shot under 40% in the playoffs. Chris Webber could have left as one of the game's greatest power forwards of all time. In 2001, battling against KG and Tim Duncan and Dirk, Webber averaged over 27 points per game, but because he could not get it done down the stretch, history has not remembered him as fond. But before we continue, Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics are almost certainly not going to the NBA Finals, but you could be. That is right, we are giving away a VIP experience to Game 4 of the NBA Finals. Roll the clip. To celebrate the launch of Coors Light, we are giving away a VIP experience to Game 4 of the NBA Finals. Plane tickets, a room, incredible seats. It is all included for Game 4 of the NBA Finals for one lucky person who is subscribed to Coors Light. The winner will be picked on June 1st. All you have to do to enter is subscribe and turn on post notifications for Coors Light. Good luck. I cannot wait to pick the winner. This is going to be incredible. Jason Tatum himself is currently in that danger zone. He's currently in the space where for some reason he has a problem blocking him from true superstar. Again, on paper, Jason Tatum has currently proven that he's on a historic path. He's also already a 4-time All-Star, 3-time member of the All-NBA, was the first ever Larry Bird Award winner. He has the resume of a true young superstar, but currently his fatal flaws are certainly holding him back. In this case, Tatum's fatal flaws are his ability to fully take over the game consistently, emphasis on consistently, and I'll say as a leader, the ability to demand respect from his teammates so they don't no-show huge games like this. Part of being a true superstar is the leadership and respect that comes with that. So those are the traits we expect in NBA superstar champions. But my question is, when it comes to competitive mindsets, is Jason Tatum so talented that he almost definitely must be the #1 option and best player on any team he's on by default? But if he were to play with someone else, if he were to play with a player who's just as talented as him, a player such as Luka or Ja, who has more of the competitive, give me the ball and get out of the way edge, is that what Jason Tatum is really meant to be? The best, not number 1 guy and not number 2 guy, but 1A or 1B guy in league history. And what I mean by that is with the Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry and Kevin Durant were certainly thought of as 1A and 1B in either order. KD even won both finals MVPs. But looking at KD's playoff numbers when he was the true number 1 before he got to Steph and the Warriors, from 2013 to 2016, KD played in 48 playoff games, averaged 29.4 points per game, but shot less than 45% from the field, a costly statistic because it was drastically different than his regular season average of around 51% from the field. When you are the superstar and you are not stepping up, your team certainly feels it. We also see KD shot drastically worse from 3 in this time, and I think we can all agree a dip of -6 in PER is jarring to see. KD's career at this time was marked in a very similar fashion to a young Tatum's. There were a lot of highs. Durant reached the finals at the age of 23, and he also won the MVP 2 seasons later. Incredible young success for Kevin Durant, but it was a bit confusing because the highs were so high and the lows were so low. KD had his tough moments for sure. So I will say, with a player as young as Jason Tatum and with a player as talented as Jason Tatum, I think Kevin Durant's early struggles should be encouraging because Jason Tatum actually has a path to follow. Yes, of course, the situations are not exactly the same, but early in his career, Kevin Durant had several moments that could have risen him into the discussion of a young GOAT. We are looking at the 4th quarter of Game 3 of the 2012 NBA Finals, and it was here where, just like a young Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant had incredible success early on, and then in Game 3, KD had a chance to become that guy. The Thunder were tied with the Heat 1-1. They would go on to lose the next 3 games, but they won this. They would take a 2-1 lead, and this young team, a young Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden, only with 9 minutes to go, Kevin Durant finishes on this play.
Here comes Harden, trying to draw a foul, lots it to Durant, and a finish high above the rim. Kevin Durant makes it a 1-point game.
And then disaster would strike.
Durant, 3-pointer, in and out. And the Thunder team right now not scoring, almost 4 minutes. Durant up and under, flips it up, won't go. That will do it. Miami will take a 2-1 lead.
Unfortunately, Kevin Durant was not ready to step up, and he struggled. The Thunder lost this one. KD shot 2 for 6 in the 4th quarter, 0 for 2 from the free throw line, and also had 2 costly turnovers. OKC would lose the next 2 games. They lost this finals in 5 games total, and Kevin Durant had his first lesson, but he did not immediately take this and immediately step up the next time he had a chance. Here we are in the 2014 NBA playoffs. It is the Western Conference Finals, Game 6. It is overtime, and here is what Kevin Durant did.
Westbrook using the screen, pumps it out to Durant, fires for 3. Durant for 3. That'll do it. The Spurs are headed to the NBA Finals.
Again, before this game, he gave us the highest of highs, but ultimately, he struggled. And it was the Spurs who would win the NBA championship this year. This was also Kevin Durant's MVP season 2014. 2 years after that, in Game 6 of the 2016 Western Conference Finals, the Thunder were up by 7 points with under 5 minutes left, only it happened again.
With some help. Bad pass. Durant in trouble entangling from Barnes and takes the shot. A minute 25 to go. Durant for 3. And Curry just runs it out. Coming back to the 3-1 deficit.
And then finally, Kevin Durant went to the Warriors, where as 1B or 1A, however you want to believe it, with a fresh start, with a fresh roster, his scoring averages jumped up 3 points per game from the regular season to the playoffs with his 2 playoff runs with the Warriors, while his shooting numbers also stayed steady. So maybe Jason Tatum is just not that full number 1 without a doubt guy. Maybe he is one of the best 1A or 1B players of all time. Or maybe he is still just a young player that has taken lumps right now and is about to come back in the ultimate way. On the other side, we have this list of playoff disappointments, and the most notable to me is Carmelo Anthony, because on this list, in terms of all of these players, Melo is the most like Tatum to me by far. And if we were to go back in time and compare a young Carmelo Anthony to a young Jason Tatum, we suddenly see that there is a real cause for concern here for not fixing one of these fatal flaws. Jason Tatum is a historically great young player, so was Melo. Carmelo Anthony was drafted number 3 overall by the Denver Nuggets after leading Syracuse to a national championship win as an All-American freshman. From there, he led the Denver Nuggets to the playoffs in his first season. After averaging 20 points per game as a rookie, he was in the exact same draft class as LeBron. There was a real legitimate debate as to who should win Rookie of the Year. Carmelo Anthony, who averaged 20 points per game and led the Denver Nuggets to the playoffs, or LeBron, who averaged a bit better numbers but did not make the playoffs. The point being, Melo was in the combo with a young LeBron, and between the ages of 21 and 22, Melo averaged over a combined 27 points and 5 rebounds per game. In total, 10 players have done that ever, and they are all Hall of Famers. Carmelo also had a run of extreme playoff success, as in 2009, he only averaged 22.8 points per game in the regular season, and then in the playoffs, brought the Nuggets to the Western Conference Finals as they smacked Dirk and the Mavericks in 5 games in the semis, with Melo averaging over 27 points per game in the playoffs, almost 5 more points per game than the regular season. The seeds were set for Carmelo Anthony to become one of the greatest players of all time. Instead, again, he's one of the greatest scorers we've ever seen. But when we can see the talent, when we can see how incredible you could be, you do get held to a higher standard. And Melo's last chance at a great playoff run would come in 2013, when in the Eastern Conference semifinals against the Pacers, the Knicks were tied heading into the 4th quarter of Game 6 when Melo unfortunately finished with a brick fest. He missed a lot. He shot 2 for 7 with 3 turnovers as the Knicks were bounced. And after that, Carmelo Anthony was never again the main player on a team that advanced past the 2nd round. Overall message being, of course, I'm rooting for the Kevin Durant route here. The figure it out route for Jason Tatum, as he has shown that he has the talent, but at this point, the questions about his game are very real. And we are going to see what ends up happening, because in the NBA, there really is no waiting around. And we know we have guys like Ja, we have guys like Luka, we have guys like Victor Wembanyama coming, ready to take the place as the best young player in the NBA. Personally, I do not want to give up on Jason Tatum in any way, because he is 25. I think he is a product of having too much success at too early of an age. I think he's going to learn from this. I think he just cares too much and works too hard for this not to end up, honestly, positively for Jason Tatum. I'm curious to know what you guys think, because I know he's going to be taking a lot of
Come on, man. It's not that bad.
You're the next line?
Dan could be there forever. I mean, nobody's ever escaped except for me.
We zoom out. It's
about this. Just be here when Dan gets out. Barking me like that, it doesn't make me want to help you.
I mean, low-key, I fuck with Elon, but you know who profited the most? Bill Gates. Sean, what are you doing here? Sean, it's been a minute, bro. Don't move. He'll trap you too.
As long as I don't make eye contact with him, he has no power.
Excuse me, can I just get a call?
No, back inside. Beat it. Why? What? You said beat it, sweetie.
What?
Are these guys bothering you?
No, it's not like
You still got that Adderall plug beast?
It's gonna be okay, Dan. I'm getting you out of here.
He doesn't want to leave. He likes me.
Nobody fucking likes you. There's only one way to break out of a brutal conversation with a brutal guy. How? You must pass him on to someone else.
No, Sean, there must be another way.
Hey, let's go! Hey, come from outside.
Hold your ground. Hold your ground.
When I take off this hat, you sprint towards the music. Got it?
No, don't do this.
Don't worry.
Sean, no! You can leave now. Jack. What's up, legend? We have so much to catch up on. You got that vape, by the way? Where's Sean? Wait, what? Is this weed?
Your parents are getting older. They're gonna die someday. You ever think about that, bro? Stop. Your dog's getting older, too. I wonder how many years she has left.
Stop, man. Seriously.
When's the last time you called your grandma?
Dude, I'm gonna have a panic attack.
Good.
Help! Help! Let me out of here, please!
No, I don't think so.
Deep Rock Galactic is the gaming equivalent of going through puberty. You know the tradition.
This video is brought to you by friend of the channel SteelSeries, makers of the best keyboard, mice, and headsets on the market. I've partnered with them to make a special unboxing and setup guide for their award-winning Arctis Nova Pro wireless headset. And to celebrate, we're giving away one of those headsets to one lucky winner. Click the link below for details or stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Gamers, how are you all liking Final Fantasy 16? If you're not having fun with it, keep it to yourself. Don't tell anyone, trust me, I know from experience. I kid. It's been an interesting week to see the discourse around Final Fantasy 16 roll through, but what is clear is that many people are loving it, and I think that's what matters most, right? We'll talk more about the reviews for that one later in the episode. For now, welcome back. I hope you've had a fantastic week, either playing games or obsessing over the Titanic submersible story. Obviously, there are parts of that story that are tragic, but I think we can all agree the sub being controlled by a Logitech game controller from like 1995, that part's pretty funny. I mean, look at this thing. It's like the controller you'd make your little brother use until he got old enough and smart enough to understand how to call shotgun or first dibs. That's video games, man, always popping up in weird, unexpected places, like underwater submersible dramas, or The View when Whoopi Goldberg started complaining that Diablo 4 wasn't on Mac. That is a true story, by the way. And let's not forget gaming also makes plenty of appearances in courtrooms. Speaking of which, alright, time to check in on the ongoing legal battle over Microsoft's attempted acquisition of Activision Blizzard King. Wait, don't go. Listen, I know you're overhearing about this, but trust me, this is actually a banger week of headlines when it comes to this stout. A whole lot of evidence has come to light, a lot of it very juicy. Believe me, you do not want to miss this. Okay, so you know all the background to this already, but you need to know why all of this stuff is coming to a head this week. The current trial is over the US Federal Trade Commission's request for what's called a preliminary injunction, which blocks the deal temporarily until such time as they've completed their review of it. The problem is that Microsoft and Activision Blizzard King have a deadline of July 18th. If the deal isn't signed by then, both parties need to renegotiate the deal. And while that's possible, insiders and commentators have suggested that would essentially scuttle the deal. Microsoft would go home empty-handed and Activision Blizzard King would be $1 billion richer, owing to a few clauses in the contract. So that's the setup. The FTC trying to block it and Microsoft trying to make it happen. Both sides are able to call witnesses, provide testimony, and present evidence collected in discovery, and already that evidence has been pretty damn interesting. Take the acknowledgement from Microsoft that they've not only lost the console war, but they've lost it every year since 2001. Microsoft's submission to the court said, quote, Xbox console has consistently ranked third of three behind PlayStation and Nintendo in sales. In 2021, Xbox had a share of 16%, while Nintendo and PlayStation had shares of redacted and redacted respectively. Likewise, for console revenues and share of consoles currently in use by gamers, install base, Xbox trails with 21%, while PlayStation and Nintendo have shares of redacted and redacted respectively, end quote. It's an argument that Microsoft had trotted out before. Hell, even Phil Spencer put it out there that time he spoke to Kind of Funny. And you can sort of understand why Xbox might be frustrated to be painted as this monopolistic force, when the reality is the best they've ever had is a bronze medal. That wasn't all though. Evidence and testimony gave us a surprising amount of insight into recent and upcoming games. Take The Elder Scrolls 6 for example. Were you hoping against hope that it might be coming along anytime soon? Well, Todd is laughing heartily at you because Phil Spencer revealed that The Elder Scrolls 6 is at least 5 years away, and let's be real, it is more than that. A
game was revealed 5 years ago now, and it will likely be upwards of 11 or 12 years between reveal and release. Truly a low point in cynical early bird logo reveals. What about The Outer Worlds 2, currently in development at Obsidian? Phil Spencer was pressed on whether or not that game would become a Microsoft exclusive, and all he could offer was that no determination had yet been made. That's important because the FTC is using every single Microsoft exclusive as proof that Microsoft would tie up the entire Activision Blizzard King catalog as exclusives, despite Phil promising otherwise. Case in point, the Indiana Jones game currently being developed at Bethesda's Machine Games. This is confirmed to be a Microsoft exclusive, but it wasn't always the case. Disney owns the rights to this, and the original contract allowed for both a PS5 and an Xbox version. When the Bethesda sale went through, Microsoft went back and renegotiated that deal, citing the fact that Spider-Man was a PS5 exclusive as an argument for why Indiana Jones should be an Xbox exclusive. Interesting. If this inconsistency is making a headspin, then you're not the only one. Bethesda's head of PR, Pete Hines, noted it himself in an internal email, seemingly complaining about the fact that Bethesda games were going exclusive while Microsoft was promising that Call of Duty and potentially other properties wouldn't. Pete Hines said in this email, quote, "Did anyone at Xbox think about giving us a heads up on this? Todd's going to DICE in a couple of weeks. You don't think a journo might find him and press him on why the below is okay for COD or any Activision Blizzard games, but not for the Elder Scrolls 6 or Starfield," end quote. That is a damn good question, Pete, but I can't imagine it's going to make the boss too happy. Pete did try to spin it a little when he was invited as a witness by the FTC. He said that Starfield wouldn't be coming out in 9 weeks if it was a multi-platform game, as the chance to focus on one console only had improved development efficiency. That may be true, but it's surely cold comfort to anyone who owns a PS5. For what it's worth, the FTC are using the exclusivity of Starfield as a mighty cudgel to prove that Microsoft plans to make everything exclusive eventually. But how the turntables when Phil Spencer revealed that there were discussions about Starfield being a PS5 exclusive at some point. That shouldn't be too surprising since Sony negotiated exclusive windows for both Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo, so it's only logical to assume that they would have done the same thing for Starfield. And it's also logical to assume that Bethesda would have been up to that because they were also a party to those deals. Phil Spencer says that this is one of the things that forced his hand in that Bethesda acquisition. And yeah, to be honest, that sounds like a pretty reasonable impetus, since losing Starfield after losing Final Fantasy XVI would have been a very rough year for Xbox. And that brings us to the 800-pound elephant in the room, Call of Duty, or Duty as you Americans call it. So much of the back and forth about this merger has hinged on this fucking game, but believe it or not, the question of COD exclusivity predates this proposed merger. At one point, Bobby Kotick said to Microsoft that unless Activision got better revenue share, they'd make COD a PlayStation exclusive. Can you believe that? This entire time we've been talking about whether or not COD would become an Xbox exclusive, when all along the real threat was it becoming a PlayStation exclusive thanks to Kotick's fuckery. Unbelievable. Again, Phil Spencer used this threat as a justification for why Microsoft had to move forward with this acquisition attempt. They just couldn't risk being frozen out on COD. It gets even wilder than this though. You know how Sony's Jim Ryan has been out there banging on every table, talking to all and sundry about how Microsoft would make COD an Xbox exclusive. Turns out he never even believed that. In an email dated January 22nd, Ryan wrote, quote, "It's not an Xbox exclusive play at all. They're thinking bigger than that, and they had the cash to make moves like this. I've spent a fair bit of time with both Phil and Bobby the past day. I'm sure we will continue to see Call of Duty on PlayStation for many years to come," end quote. Oh my god, are you kidding me right now, Jim? Come on, man. If you are going to try and hustle us like this, then at least don't document your truth like some villain whose diary gets discovered at the beginning of the third act. This is amateur hour, Jim. You were just giving easy layups to Phil Spencer right now. Obviously, that's an admission that Microsoft's lawyers were all too happy to hammer, and Phil Spencer was happy to help when he took the stand and promised under oath that Call of Duty would remain on PlayStation. Quote, "I would raise my hand. I would do whatever it takes. We have no plan. I'm making a commitment standing here that we will not pull Call of Duty. It is my testimony from PlayStation," end quote. Well, there you have it. No one's ever lied under oath, so I guess case closed. Not quite, obviously, but it does show how far Phil is willing to go to get this deal over the line. Plenty of other interesting tidbits to check out of these proceedings. For example, did you know that Xbox considered acquiring Bungie? Imagine that, hey, Microsoft owning Bungie. Sounds pretty crazy, doesn't it? Oh well, I guess it never happened. I guess it will never happen. Microsoft also considered picking up Sega since they have a boatload of juicy IP to pull from, and it gives them a nice foothold in Japan. But the reality is, Microsoft has essentially considered buying every studio or publisher at this point, so ravenous is their hunger for talent and IP. Also very interesting to note that Phil Spencer expects the next console generation to begin sometime around 2028, which means we're only like 4 years away from next-gen console reveals. These proceedings may have material impacts on how that next-gen plays out, as Microsoft revealed that Sony did not provide them with PS5 dev kits early on, which is why there's no PS5 version of Minecraft. Similarly, Jim Ryan has flagged that if this acquisition goes through, they'd be unable to provide PS6 dev kits to Activision Blizzard, meaning that we shouldn't expect PS6 versions of games like Call of Duty or Overwatch 3, now with 3-person squads, and every skin costs $600. Of course, Sony choosing not to provide dev kits to the competition is their prerogative, but it's also understandable since you don't want to be giving away your hardware secrets to the very people you're in business against. It's the perfect example of just how far the repercussions of this deal could reverberate across IP, across platforms, and across console generations. And that is the update. I know it was long, but was I lying? That was some good shit, right? Way more interesting than your average acquisition update. I can't promise they'll all be that juicy, but I can promise that I'll keep you up to date because, like it or not, this is still the biggest gaming news story of the year. But it's not the only news story. Take, for example, the latest Nintendo Direct. Did you guys catch that one? It wasn't a barn burner by any means, but it did have some pretty great stuff in there worth paying attention to. We got some information about the upcoming Pokemon DLC. It's more Pokemon. Don't know what else to say about that one. The Batman Arkham Trilogy is coming to Switch, and that's pretty rad. We got a deep dive look at Pikmin 4, which continues to look excellent, and it's wonderful that series is making a return. The Metal Gear Solid Collection Volume 1 is making its way to Switch on October 24th. I thought we all kind of knew this already, but maybe this was the announcement for the Switch port. Either way, that is a big win. Vampire Survivors is getting a couch co-op mode on the 17th of August, 1st, which is the same day it arrives on Nintendo Switch. Lord help any of you who have not yet had your life utterly ruined by this game. You're in for a rude shock when you look up and notice it's 4 a.m. and when you close your eyes to go to sleep, you can still see the game map and all the flashing lights popping off. Trust me, that's happened to me way too many times. Those were just the warm-up rounds though. The headline offerings included Move It Wario Style, a new Wario game that utilizes the Joy-Cons to get you off the couch and moving around. Not sure if gamers will be up for that, but we'll find out, I guess. Super Mario RPG sent mini Nintendrones into overdrive when it was revealed. This is a remake of the 1996 Super Nintendo classic that takes the beloved heroes and villains of the Mushroom Kingdom and turns them into a fellowship battling it out in JRPG-style combat. This one arrives on November 17th, and it looks great. The biggest reveal, though, was a brand new 2D Mario game titled Super Mario Bros. Wonder, the central conceit being Mario's ability to pick up wonder flowers that will transform both the world and Mario into fantastical things. I can't remember when the last 2D Mario was, but it feels like a little while now, so it's great to see Nintendo back at it, no doubt emboldened by the incredible success of the Mario movie, which is actually already like one of the most profitable animated films of all time. Super Mario Bros. Wonder is out pretty soon, actually, on October 20th. Finally, there's a Princess Peach game on the way as well. No specifics on this one yet, but we did see a snippet of gameplay, and it's out sometime this year. And there you have it, the Nintendo Direct. Told you it wasn't all Xbox and Sony news this week. A quick lightning round to finish off. Diablo 4 suffered a massive DDoS attack earlier this week that brought the game down for hours. It's certainly not the first DDoS attack that Blizzard has suffered, but it is the first since the launch of Diablo 4, and it's prompted some people to demand that Blizzard add an offline mode to the game. Allow me to be the first to say, good luck with that. Never gonna happen. It would be nice, but it's never gonna happen. Metal Gear Solid 4 may soon be free from the George Foreman grill, aka the PS3. The Datamine leak this week revealed what everyone was kind of expecting when Konami named the upcoming Metal Gear Collection Volume 1. Breadcrumbs pointing to a Volume 2, hinting at the inclusion of Peace Walker, Metal Gear Solid 5, and the Motherload, Metal Gear Solid 4, baby, a game with spaghetti code so nefarious that most emulators shudder at the mere sight of it. It would be fantastic to get this game properly re-released on modern hardware, but it is Konami we're talking about here, so let's not count our chickens before they hatch. I know we've already done a boatload of Xbox news, but here's one headline they squeezed out hoping no one would notice. The price of the Xbox Series X and Game Pass are both going up in the majority of territories. The price of Microsoft's fridge-shaped console will increase to £480 sterling, 550 euros, 650 Canadian dollars, and $800 dues. In the US, Japan, Chile, Brazil, and Colombia, the price will remain the same. The price of Game Pass will increase in all territories by roughly $1 a month. Hardly a deal breaker, but it may be just a reminder that people need to cancel a subscription if they're not getting much value out of it. Woylong Fallen Dynasty is getting some Lies of P crossover content, or maybe Lies of P is getting some Woylong content, or maybe both. I don't know. The news came from Team Ninja's website. It's a very odd crossover because while these two games are both Souls-like, they don't have much else in common, and they aren't being published by the same label or anything. Still, it's pretty cool. It'll be interesting to see what shakes out of this one. And finally, Guerrilla Games have added a touching tribute to the late and very great Lance Reddick in Horizon Forbidden West. Reddick was best known as an incredible on-screen talent in shows like The Wire or movies like John Wick, but he was also prolific in the gaming space, appearing as both Commander Zavala in Destiny and Silas in Guerrilla's Horizon games. The tribute has his name floating in a quiet, idyllic location, well off the beaten path, but well worth seeking out if you're looking to pay your respects to an iconic talent taken too soon. So what got announced or delayed this week? Well, in addition to that Nintendo Direct, there were a few announcements. Turbo Overkill made its early access debut last year, its most notable feature being the fact that your character has a chainsaw for a leg. Luckily, it wasn't all gimmicks, as Turbo Overkill would go on to impress pretty much anyone that got their hands on it. A boomer shooter style experience that looks to advance that subgenre rather than just relive the glory days. The developers have just announced that the game will be hitting 1.0 on July 18th, and once the PC build is done, they'll be turning their attention to console ports. This one is sitting at 96% overwhelmingly positive on Steam, and it isn't even finished yet, so it is definitely one to have on your radar. There's a new Transformers game on the way in the form of Transformers Earthspark Expedition. It's a third-person action game with a mix of car combat and old-fashioned fisticuffs. It looks a little basic, definitely not a AAA offering here, but hopefully it's got it where it counts. This one is hitting all platforms on October 13th. Gloomhaven is a digital adaptation of the beloved tabletop RPG. It was in early access on PC for a while before hitting 1.0 last year. Console ports have been in the works since then and are now nearly done, confirmed to be hitting on September 18th. Hey, here's a weird one. Remember Chocobo GP? If you don't, it's because it was one of the 6 or 7 live service flops that Square Enix farted out last year before quickly shuttering each of them. This was a kart racer that should have engendered a lot of love given its cast of characters and setting, but the whole thing was just a crude microtransaction hellscape, and with nothing but hostile word of mouth out there, the title was quickly delisted from sale. Well, it's back actually. Almost without any announcement or fanfare, Square have relisted this on the Nintendo Switch eShop, but they've done so without any microtransactions in it. It's just a straight up video game now that you can play and unlock stuff by playing. It's a revolutionary concept, I know, but it's nice to see publishers thinking outside the box. It's available right now on the eShop, so you can grab that if you can. And finally, only one delay announcement this week, and it's for Immortals of Avium. This was meant to ship in July, but out of a desire to further polish the title, it'll now ship on August 22nd, 3 days before Armored Core. That must have been a very rough call for this team to make, because that previous July release window was one of the best things going for the title. There's not much hitting at that time, except for Remnant 2 and Pikmin 4, both great looking titles, but certainly a lot less in demand than the next thing from FromSoft. So my point is, gotta respect the team for putting quality before a convenient release date. This is, after all, EA, who shipped 2 fantastic titles, both greatly undermined by the quality of their PC ports, Love Hearts and Jedi Survivor. So if this delay helps Avium sidestep that grim fate, then that's only a good thing. By the way, I actually did play Avium while I was at the Summer Games Fest, so if you want to see what that one's all about, I'll leave a link to my preview below the like button. So what came out last week? Quite a stacked week actually, with a mix of indies, AA and AAA behemoths. We'll do the smaller stuff first. Mars First Logistics is a lovely looking physics and construction game where you build odd looking rovers to move about oddly shaped things. This one had plenty of demos and previews in the lead up to its early access launch, all of them very positive, and the early access release is no different, with the title already sitting at 98% very positive. It would be overwhelmingly positive, but there just aren't quite enough reviews up yet. If you want to help change that, you can grab the title right now on Steam, but do be aware that it is early access, so expect a few bumps and some content gaps. The other indie to release this week was Trepang Squared, and boy howdy did this one deliver just like I knew it would. This one is a spiritual successor to the Fear games in many ways, particularly in the overall flow of combat and the intelligence of the AI hunting you. This had one of the best demos I've ever played when it was on the Steam Next Fest some time ago, and the final product appears to be even better. 95% overwhelmingly positive on Steam, though critics are a lot more muted on it, sitting at a strong 78. Gaming Bolt scored this one an 8 out of 10, saying, quote, "It features fantastic gunplay and some excellent enemy AI to play around with, and despite the visual clutter, you'll likely find yourself having a good time," end quote. And IGN Italy were in broad agreement saying, quote, while not without its flaws, some more glaring than others, Trepang Squared still offers some of the most intense and visceral combat you can find in an FPS, and that is more than enough to make for a solid experience, end quote. It's out right now on PC, and you gotta guess the console ports are on the way at some point. Sea Smash is a reimagining of an old Sega game resurrected through the magic of VR, or more specifically, the PSVR 2. This is exclusive to Sony's headset for the moment, and it's meant to be pretty good. God is a Geek scored this one an 8, saying, quote, Sea Smash VRS is like a culmination of an idea 20-odd years in gestation, with a great multiplayer offering only stumbling in its single player, end quote. That's a good call out though, as this one is pretty multiplayer focused, and given the niche nature of titles like this, you shouldn't expect that matchmaking side of things to be popping off for very long. Definitely one to pick up if you have a friend to play with, so you've got someone to play against. Probably don't recommend grabbing this one if you're looking for a single player experience though, because there really isn't much there. Alright, next up is Crash Team Rumble. That's right, bet you forgot about that one, like everybody else. This one didn't look super great in the lead up to it, and the critics seem to agree. It's sitting at a very nice 69 on OpenCritic. At the top end of the spectrum is Game Informer, who scored it an 8, saying, quote, Crash Team Rumble's take on multiplayer platforming madness is unique, with enough depth to keep you on your toes after hours of gameplay. Those searching for a fresh take on the long-running series should give it a try, end quote. At the other end of the spectrum is Metro Game Central, who scored it a 4 out of 10, saying, quote, turning Crash Bandicoot into a MOBA is certainly a choice, but not one that's paid off. In this paper-thin platformer that has little to offer either, Square have relisted this on the Nintendo Switch eShop, but they've done so without any microtransactions. While these two games are both Souls-like, they don't have much else in common. This one didn't look super great in the lead up to it. Launched on all platforms bar the Switch last week, and it had a pretty rosy reception actually. 88% very positive on Steam, lots of positive buzz across social media, and a respectable strong 77 on OpenCritic. PC Gamer were very complimentary, scoring this one an 84 and saying, quote, a powerful generator of gnawing tension and tough tactical decisions, Aliens Dark Descent is a script pass away from being an all-timer, end quote. But there were also plenty of 7s in there, like IGN's, who wrote of it, quote, Aliens Dark Descent is a fascinating, tense, inspired survival horror RTS with a few too many technical bugs to recommend it without caveats, end quote. Bottom line, the developers seem to have pulled it off. If you're in the mood for a real-time tactical experience with a healthy dose of tension and terror, it looks like you could do far worse than this. And finally, Final Fantasy 16. Okay, so where to start with this one? All right, let's just say it's been a bit of a week for old Shillup. Despite me begging and pleading at the start of my review for people to not care about what I think, it turns out a bunch of people were very, very angry about what I thought. If you watch my review, you would have seen that I personally am not a fan of Final Fantasy 16. I think it is too leveraged into its cutscenes. I think its mission and world design are pretty dated. I think its RPG systems are essentially non-existent because, well, they are non-existent. I think these are pretty milquetoast criticisms, by the way, but yeah, Reddit and Twitter were, it was open season on Shillup this weekend. That's fine though. I've been here many times before and likely will be again, but the point I will always come back to is that reviews are just opinions. Don't worry about what anyone else thinks about the thing that you love, because what matters is that you love it. And people do love this game. All over social media, you see gushing praise for it. Clear evidence that Yoshi P and his crew made a good bet when they made the move to a full character action combat game, as well as a more mature Game of Thrones inspired storyline. Critics really, really love this one, with it sitting at a mighty 89 on OpenCritic. GameSpot scored this one a 9, saying, quote, Final Fantasy 16 is a bold shift in both gameplay and narrative, yet captures the Final Fantasy magic in stunning fashion, earning a place within the pantheon of incredible entries in the beloved franchise, end quote. And IGN concurred, also scoring it a 9, saying, quote, its excellent story, characters, and world building are right up there with the best the series has to offer, and the innovative active time lore feature should set a new standard for how lengthy story-heavy games keep players invested in its world, end quote. Having said that, there were the smattering of critic reviews that were more critical, like the 6 out of 10 from Metro Game Central, who said of it, quote, an excellent battle system shackled to a dispiritingly dull and long-winded fantasy adventure that takes an inordinate amount of time to say nothing of value, end quote. So yeah, Final Fantasy 16, I'm going to be really interested to see how the narrative shifts on this one over time. Final Fantasy 15, for example, got really high reviews, and then later on, everyone was like, wait a minute, this fucking sucks. But then, years after that, everyone kind of has a bit of a soft spot for it now, because they really love the bros and the road trip and the journey and all that sort of stuff. The way we see these big marquee releases often shifts over time, and there's every chance the same thing will happen here with Final Fantasy 16. But now though, it's out, it's exclusive to PS5, and it's on the way to PC at some point in the future. Xbox port, question mark? Not unless Microsoft buys Square Enix, I'd wager. And I think Phil's a little bit busy with another acquisition at the moment, so I wouldn't hold your breath. Alright, so what's coming out this week? Not a lot. Boy, this is a skint week if I ever saw one. There's a wrestling game coming out, AEW Forever. I'm gonna keep it real with you. Wrestling is a weird American art form, and I view it much the same way that you people must view cricket, with puzzlement and suspicion. Still, I do know that AEW is a new kid on the block when it comes to the wrestling scene, so if you're keen to support the underdog, then this one hits all platforms on the 29th. Here's one I'm actually pretty keen on. Power Wash Simulator is getting a SpongeBob SquarePants themed DLC this week, launching on the 29th for all platforms. It's Power Bob Sponge Wash. Clean, iconic underwater SpongeBob locations using the power of water, I guess. This unironically looks awesome, and it's the first crossover rodeo for Power Wash, having already released a Lara Croft themed content drop and a Final Fantasy VII themed update as well. Those were free because they were Square Enix IPs, and Power Wash is published by Square Enix. If you didn't know that, since SpongeBob is not a Square Enix property, you will have to fork out a couple of bucks for this one, but if the previous updates are anything to go by, it'll be money well spent. Okay, so have you heard the legend of Everybody 1-2 Switch? This is a game made by Nintendo that apparently play tested so badly, people hated it so much that Nintendo had to significantly delay it to fix it. Apparently that process is now concluded, and the game will launch exclusively on the Switch on the 30th. It's essentially a party game with a ton of mini games involving sprinting or hurling ninja stars or games like musical chairs, and the thing is, you can actually have up to 100 people playing locally because people can play the game using their smartphones as a controller. It's kind kind of cool, actually, and I can see this having use cases in, you know, Christian band camps or whatever. But, like, let's be real here, we're gamers. We don't have any real-life friends. We could barely fill a phone booth with our mates, let alone a scout hall. And this game doesn't appear to have any online co-op. Still, if you're one of the rare Nintendo fans that also happens to have healthy in-person relationships with other human beings, then this one arrives on the 30th. That's not the only Nintendo Switch exclusive dropping that day, though. Samba de Amigo is back. This one's called Party Central. Sadly, no maracas this time around. Just the Joy-Cons doing the job, but let's be real, definitely way less satisfying to use. Final release of the week is a pretty cool one, actually. Many years ago, the man behind the Ace Attorney games made a clever, macabre puzzle game called Ghost Trick. You play a dead guy who can possess objects and manipulate them to alter the fate of others, while also trying to solve the mystery of your own death. It was only ever released on the 3DS and found limited commercial success, but it became a bit of a cult classic, and now Capcom have remade it in the RE engine and are shipping it to all platforms on the 30th. I actually have this installed on my Steam Deck right now as Capcom sent me a review copy. I'm only a small ways into it, but right off the jump, it makes such a fantastic impression, and I'm very keen to more. Definitely something I plan to chip away at whenever I find some spare time. Okay, so I promised I selected this next game well in advance of the recent Titanic-themed submersible drama, so with that disclaimer out of the way, put this on your radar. While I was at the Summer Games Fest in LA, I got the chance to go hands-on with this. It's called Under the Waves, and it's a debut title from a French-based studio called Parallel. It's not at all Subnautica. It's not a survival game. It doesn't have building or resource management. It's instead a narrative-led psychological exploration game, exploring not only the deeps, but also the concept of grief, as the main protagonist has recently suffered a traumatic loss and needs to come to terms with it. In addition to the impressive presentation and premise, the thing that really grabbed me was the writing. There's this beautiful, melancholic quality to the script, and the English voice cast has perfectly captured the sullen, sinking sadness that must accompany a life lived alone in a small metal box hundreds of meters below the surface. I'm really keen for this one, and I definitely think it has sleeper hit potential. It's one I will absolutely be playing through when it launches on August 29th. If you're at all interested and want to check it out for yourself, maybe even wishlist it, I've profiled it over on my Steam Curator page, which also has links to all of the other Put This On Your Radar stuff I've recently covered. I'll leave a link to all of that below the like button. Sort of free stuff time now, and we are in the final week of the month, so it's time to scoop up your PS Plus goodies, your Games with Gold, and your Twitch Prime gaming offerings before they disappear. Meanwhile, Epic is still doing their regular weekly thing. Not much to write home about this week, though. Right now, you can still grab some in-game items for Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms, Dungeons and Dragons, as well as the Hunter, Call of the Wild. Later this week, those two will be replaced by something called the Dungeon of Nahulbuke, the Amulet of Chaos. I haven't heard of this one, but it's apparently a tactical dungeon crawler released back in 2020. Mostly positive on Steam. Nothing else to really say about that one. Game Pass got a refresh this week, and it's got a few interesting things on there. Arcade Paradise is a weird but wonderful game about setting up an arcade in an old laundromat that you work a part-time job in. A nice concept for 80s kids, I think. Fist may look goofy with the whole One-Punch Rabbit vibe, but it's meant to be pretty decent, actually. Very solid reviews for this one when it came out. Same goes for Bramble the Mountain King, a dark adventure game based on grim Nordic fables. Rave reviews for that one when it launched earlier this year. Finally, if it's something a little more AAA you're after, then perhaps you might enjoy Need for Speed Unbound. This one had really solid reviews at first, but then public sentiment seemed to kind of turn on it, and now it isn't spoken about nearly as fondly as some of the other recent Need for Speed games. Still, that Game Pass price tag is hard to argue with, so if you're at all curious, you can suck it and see. That is a phrase that means you can try it for yourself, by the way, but when I say it like that, it sounds like it means something quite different. Anyway, let's move on. The final sort of free shout this week is for Prime Gaming, who are getting all warmed up for Amazon Prime Day coming up soon. God, there's something really gross about corporations declaring days, like proxy religious holidays intended to elicit donations to Jeff Bezos' coffers. Anyway, Jeff is a merciful god, and he's giving away some extra video games this month, most notably The Extraordinary Prey, a masterpiece of an immersive sim, and sadly also Arcane Swan Song, it seems. That's available right now, but over the next few weeks, additional stuff will hit the giveaway bin, including Star Wars Force Unleashed, Neverwinter Nights, and Baldur's Gate 2. And if you get started on that one right about now, you might have it finished just in time for the release of Baldur's Gate 3 at the end of August. Okay, feel-good story for the week time, and I got to admit, every time these guys roll out a new trailer, I'm like that dog from Pixar's Up. Squirrel! Done. This is a new trailer that just dropped. I would remind you that this is an actual video game that actual human beings, or squirrels, are making. The thing is, Steam is full of this type of gimmicky garbage, but the difference is that this one actually looks pretty good, and the developers have taken the time to record a Snake Eater-inspired theme song for it. Did you notice that a second ago? If not, take another listen.
You won't think twice, you just don't lie. Yeah. Well, now you've been warned about the squirrel with a gun.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the show for the week. Lazy Austin is back from his vacation now. He edited half this video, and Stu helped out with the other half, so thank you to both of those gents. Again, if you liked it, then please hit the thumbs up on the video. I'm sure both Stu and Austin would appreciate that, as would I. Also, if you'd like to come back next week, we'd love to have you, so be sure to subscribe and ding the notification bell. I've got a preview going up later this week, one that I'm pretty pumped for, but I'm going to be winding down soon, and I'm about to take a family vacation for like 3 weeks. We'll still have videos going up on the channel through that time, though, but we'll talk more about that later. For now, I hope you're enjoying whatever it is you're playing, and before you head off, maybe consider sticking around for this week's sponsor, SteelSeries, since I partnered with them to make a very special thing, and you might like it. Roll it, Austin. Guys, if you've been around the channel for a while now, you'd know my good friends SteelSeries. They've been supporting what we do around here, and I've always been proud to have them as a partner because they consistently put out the best stuff in each of their chosen categories. Mice, keyboards, headsets, and more. All of it industry-leading and award-winning, and if you don't believe me, just go check out the reviews. Recently, SteelSeries and I did something pretty cool. We worked together to make a setup and unboxing video for their award-winning Arctis Nova Pro wireless headset. That's now up on their official SteelSeries YouTube channel. Now, when people grab one of these bad boys and want to watch a setup video, they'll have to see my ugly mug. Sorry about that. Still, they should take solace in the knowledge that they've got themselves a damn fine feature-packed headset. The Arctis Nova Pro Series headset comes in PlayStation, Xbox, or PC variants, but they also support multi-system connect, allowing you to connect the
bit of a pinch in my neck. Ah. I can get anywhere, anytime.
Get on board the drop pod, team. Mission is ready. Orbital insertion sequence initiated. Board the drop pod.
Let's move it.
Cavalry's here. New miner inbound.
Maybe the ball, that's mine.
Let's get the job done. Looking forward to be working with you. You want some more?
Hostiles are backing down. Finish them.